Good evening. My mother died when I was 11 years old. And over the years, I've been asked what it was like growing up without her in my life. And my response is always the same. I lost one mother and inherited many mothers. Always response is a quizzical look. What does that mean? Today I want to talk about growing up as a child of many mothers, what I call nested mothers. My grandmother had 10 children, 5 girls and 5 boys. My mother was the oldest of the girls and the second-born child. She was from the Luo community in Kenya, and my dad from the Ga community in Ghana. In Africa, in many instances, you find that aunts and uncles refer to their nieces and nephews as their children, not as their nieces and not as their nephews. And this is something that traverses many cultures across the continent. So when I'm asked the question, what was it like to grow up without your mother in your life, I find that I have to be introspective, but I also find that I have to go back into my childhood. When I was a kid, I loved to play, like most kids. One of the things I loved to do was jump off of high walls, much to the chagrin of my mother. The other thing I loved to do was to play with dolls. So I have my little ducky here. This duck is actually part of a nested doll. Some of you may have played with them when you were young. And I find that it kind of describes the infrastructure within which I grew up. You see, my mother was very, very close to her siblings, her aunts, her parents, her grandparents. So let's say my great-grandmother. She loved her mother dearly and all of her aunts. Okay? She loved her sisters and her cousins. I grew up not necessarily thinking of my mother just as my mother. You see, in the Luo culture that I'm most familiar with, a mother's sisters are called Mama Matin, little mother. A father's brothers are called Baba Matin, little father. So at any given time, you can be referring to your mother, your biological mother, but you could also be referring to your other mothers, right? So therefore, when I lost my mother, my other mothers took courage and stepped up to the plate. It's not expected, but they made that decision to be intentional in the continuity of the family. I believe that I overcame the trauma of losing my mother because of all these nested mothers that were in my life. Mother was a physician. She worked at a maternity hospital. She was in the business of helping mothers bring bundles of joy into the world. Unfortunately, she contracted hepatitis C while working. Back then, the hospital that she worked at was very strapped for resources. They just did not seem to have enough to go around in terms of buying gloves. Sometimes the autoclaves didn't work. So she, like many healthcare workers, succumbed to infectious diseases. My uncle says that when she was given her diagnosis, she immediately knew she was going to die because at that time, they did not have therapeutics for hepatitis C. We, on the other hand, had no idea how unwell she was. The only time I'd ever seen her in a hospital was when she had had my twin brothers 3 years prior. We lived very far away from the hospital, and so it was a challenge to go and visit as often as we would have liked. One particular day when I was in school, came up with a bright idea that I was going to save my snack money and take the public bus to the hospital to visit with her. We had a driver. His name was David. Sadly for David that day, he came to school and looked for me, and I was gone. He was beside himself until a friend of mine informed him that I'd actually gone to visit with my mother. Got to the hospital, I bought some flowers because she loved flowers, and I went up there. I remember having conversation, but I truly cannot remember what we talked about. The one thing I do know is that I must have enjoyed that visit because I developed a habit of going there on the weekdays. David got to a point when he started enabling my behavior and stopped looking for me at school and would just wait for me at the hospital. One Friday, I went over to the hospital and found my aunt standing sentry at the door. I asked if I could go in and visit, and she said, "Unfortunately, your mother's not taking visitors today." I begged, I pleaded, but she said, "No, your mom is not taking visitors today." I asked if maybe I could leave flowers so that she would know that I'd come by to visit. And she said, "Sure, you can leave the flowers." I left there determined that I was going to find a way to make it into that room come Monday. My aunt was not going to win this battle. But I applaud her for taking instruction and being obedient to it. That Sunday, my dad came over and picked myself and one of my brothers up. We went to a park, we picnicked, we boated, we had a blast. And got back home to find cars in the parking lot. Didn't think much about it, it was a Sunday anyway. Went upstairs, and suddenly I knew something was wrong, because opened the door and found people crying and looking sad, very different from the environment that I'd gotten used to, because our house was always full of all of my aunts and uncles, and it was usually joyous. My grandmother was there, sitting on a chair on the far end wall, and usually she would jump up and ask to pray when people walked in and she was crying. Actually, she was weeping. So I immediately knew something was wrong, and I decided I was going to go and retreat into the bedroom away from all of this sorrow. But Hannah left into my mother's bedroom instead to find people standing there, talking, milling around. They kind of sounded incoherent, if you ask me. So I decided to stand against the wall and just listen and observe. "What are we going to do with the twins?" I heard someone say. "They're only 3 years old." Another person said, "What about the boy? He was very close to his mother." Another person asked, "What about the girl?" I wondered which girl they were talking about. You see, there was me, and then there was my older sister. My sister was in Ghana at the time. She had lived there for a long time with my grandmother and my aunts. And at that particular time, she was in boarding school. A friend of mine, 9-year-old boy, walked into the room and found me there, and he said, "So, what's going to happen? Are you guys going to move? You can't live here anymore because, your mom's not here." And it shocked me. It cut me like a knife. At that particular moment, it hit me why all these people were in the house, I felt that all these people had brought sorrow into my home. I also knew that my plan for Monday was now out of the window. Monday woke up and I decided I was going to go to school and find a sense of normalcy in there, because being home was a little bit overwhelming. My aunt called the principal in the middle of the day and asked how I was doing. Motherhood fell on her shoulders that day. Another aunt, newly married, sat down with her husband and her mother-in-law, and they came to a decision that they were going to adopt the twins. You see, mom and dad had been divorced at that point. My brothers were a vacuum waiting to be filled with love and nurture. My sister says that she had a dream that our mother had died, and so she called my aunt to ask if it were true. My aunt, driven by fear and not wanting to bring sorrow upon my sister, decided to speak an untruth and say that, no, your mother is still alive. I remember one of my high school teachers, my literature teacher, always used to say, efforts to help others may sometimes make matters worse. When she would say that, I never really thought much about I was a teenager, right? I didn't put much credence to it. But as I reflect on my sister's story and her experience, I realize how grave that statement is. Because unfortunately for my sister, she did not get to find out that our mother had died for many years. It's not easy to grow up without a mother, so I'm not going to make light of it. And there's certainly moments when one has longing. My sister tells me that when she had her children, she had twins, like my mother, she woke up one morning in a panic, but also a deep longing for a mother to guide her. But before that thought cemented in her mind, there was a knock on the door. The nested mothers had checked in. They came, they cooked, they cleaned, they took care of the babies, they made sure she had something to eat. They did this in the morning and in the evening, day in, day out, day in, day out, until those children were older. You see, they did not just think of them as their nieces' children. They looked at my nephews as their grandchildren. I think of myself when I got married. I remember waking up on my wedding day with a deep longing for my mother, wondering what would it have been like if she were here. But again, before I could really delve into that space, I remembered I'd shared a bedroom with my aunt. She was right there. And when I opened my eyes, I realized my things were not in my bedroom. I was like, what happened? And I asked her, what happened to my things? And she says, oh, they're outside. I said, what do you mean they're outside? And she goes, oh, my dear, we've done everything that we could do for you. We have now prepared you to go into your new home. That was very shocking to me. I felt like I was being discarded. And then I realized that, oh, wait a minute. In Nigeria, I have heard that when a girl is getting ready to get married, her mother and her aunts take her into a certain hut or space and train her on what it means to be a good mother, a good wife, to manage your home. And once you go through this training, you have to walk out of that hut and go start your space. And that day it hit me just how blessed I was, just how lucky I was to have been embraced amongst a community of what I call my nested mothers, rather than my aunts and uncles. It gets me thinking about other girls or other women who've grown up, maybe, without their mothers. What about instances when a mother develops Alzheimer's or dementia and cannot remember her children? That person is going to feel a loss, as if it were their mother had died. What if a mother is incarcerated for life and loses all ability to nurture her children? Those children are going to feel loss, as if it were their mother had died. What if we have a situation where a mother abandons her children with no intention of re-engaging? Those children will feel deep loss. Are there nested mothers around them? What if a mother is physically present, but spiritually and emotionally absent from her children? You see, when I was growing up, my grandmother prayed for us every single day by name. She prayed for her children, she prayed for her grandchildren, she prayed for her great-grandchildren. We all knew she was praying for us. When I left Kenya to come to America, I was certain that she was praying for me by name. So it didn't matter where I was geographically, because emotionally and spiritually, I knew I had a nested mother thinking about me. Over the years, I've gotten to know who my mother was. Maybe I don't have a physical artifact to remind me of that. But I hear that she was an entrepreneur, very much like my Aunt Janet and my Aunt Helen. She loved fashion. She's a total fashionista, right? So my Aunt Sarah and Aunt Akinye, that's who they are. She loved to cook and welcome people into her home, very much like Aunt Helen. She was an academic. I know I would never have been able to make it were it not for my Aunt Junie. She was a diplomat and could handle deep, deep conversations, quite a bit like my great-aunt Phoebe. She was an empath, like my great-aunt Petty. She loved birthday parties. We grew up with huge birthday parties. My Aunt Neddy sends me birthday cards every single year without fail. She loved deep conversations that tickled the intellect, very much like my Aunt Atieno. She was an organizer, a planner, liked to make sure things worked out just the way they should, even folded towels in a very specific way, much like my Aunt Mary. So you see, I feel that I grew up embedded within my mother, embedded in a family of nested mothers. I ask myself, am I a nested mother in my community? I ask you, are you a nested mother in your community? Guys, you're not off the hook. Thank you.